Over the last few days, my group has been progressing Cinderbrew Meadery and trying to cook up a few different routes. For reference, we generally run Double Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, Resto Shaman, and I play Brewmaster Monk. Not the most ideal composition when looking at the latter. Unlike other compositions though, we are pretty limited in our ability to pull large due to the weak tank, and relatively capped on our damage. We needed to get creative. Last night, my group was able to time a 15 Cinderbrew Meadery, and this has to be the strangest route. Per usual, we are going to start the dungeon with a massive pull, accompanied with Bloodlust. The Brewmaster is extremely vulnerable in pulls like this, so as soon as the pull gets started, we are on a very short timer, which only gets shorter based on mistakes. Once the pull goes down, we carefully pull Chewy, the mini-boss, and we make sure to always position him properly so we don't get knocked back from the Tenderize into mobs that we don't want. Then, during the high stakes channel, we opt to chain pull mobs in that our group can handle while attempting to dispatch this mini-boss. Once the first mini-boss falls, we are clear to finish the rest of the room. This takes us roughly about 5 minutes, and at this point we're ready to pull the first boss. This fight can have its complications, but it mostly boils down to your group's ability to spot heal and use defensives whenever you get the Cinderbrew debuff. Once this boss goes down, instead of heading to the north end of the dungeon like we usually do, we decide to take on the south end to exterminate some bees. And this is where the route gets interesting. In order to keep good pacing, we need to move quickly. The general rule for this hallway is to never have more than one Purveyor and one Bee Wrangler, as they both have important casts that need to be locked down. Once we reach the first boss, we decide to pull trash onto him, as we just needed to find extra time. Once Bank Busby falls, instead of dashing towards the north wing, instead we continue clearing the remaining trash in this area, even this pack that's tucked way back in the corner of the dungeon. These pulls are mostly ignored by groups because they force you way over percent, but honestly they're not terrible count if you know how to skip. Once we finish here, we now have 75% count. Now we can get to the meat of this. The other day I did a short on YouTube talking about the skip where you can wall climb up to the final boss room. Now, at face value, it's a skip that can save you maybe 5 seconds at most if done properly the first time, but it requires the majority of your group to be able to execute this on its first go. It also normally only works when Bank Busby was the third boss you killed and not the second. So when you find yourself getting up to this room, the window to IPA's area is closed. It's locked, it's inaccessible. Now that's until a player makes it into the boss room, and this is where registered RP starts that Goldie Baronbottom does, like open the window when she flies around the room really quick. While we are doing this wall jump skip, CL, our rogue, is using grapple, sprint, and vanish to get into the boss room to drop combat in order to open this window. And this is mostly because all the hobgoblins in this dungeon have spectral sight, meaning that they're going to see him in stealth. They are, at least in my opinion, some of the most difficult trash to deal with, especially once they get enraged. Even in this run, we saw deaths to this hobgoblin. Once this window is open, we jump down into IPA's boss room, where we are pinned in a corner until we clear some of the mobs. Unfortunately, we are slightly fast, so we didn't have lust where we wanted it, but once we started creating more room in this area, we just ended up clearing everything in reverse. Not only was this nice for percent, but it also allowed us to use the entire boss room, where we normally leave one trash pack in the corner. Once IPA went down, the last thing to do was to finish off the final trash pack of the dungeon. When playing with Arms Warriors, we have access to something called Mortal Strike. This reduces all healing by 50%. This can be actually quite a massive time save in this area if you're able to cleave these mobs down evenly. If you cleave them down like this, they won't heal necessarily back to 100% health, they'll heal only 50%. Another great perk of playing with Arms Warriors is that you can also save up a big enough hit to kill 2 mobs in a single blow. And this final blow is what sealed the deal on timing this key. Shortly after, we finished off Goldie with 30 seconds remaining. While the 3 deaths did cost us a fair bit of time, this run was absolutely insane, and probably one of the most unique routes that I've ran to date. I'm very proud of my team and looking forward to the rest of the season. I hope you guys enjoyed this little breakdown. I would have loved to stream this key, but it was a very late night and it was definitely a one and done kind of deal. Huge shout out to all my Patreon supporters who make my work possible, because without them there'd be a lot less of, well, whatever this was. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.